Hi, it's Dwyer. It is June 24th, 2025. Note the date, folks, it's hopelessly early, right? Not a single NFL preseason game has been played. We don't have a lot of information. This is an early take. GamblersAdvisory.com, also bettingangle.us. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, we understand that this NFL season is going to be in large part decided by things we don't know about right now. Right, last year, take the 1 seed in the NFC, the Lions. They lost Aiden Hutchinson during the season, right? Injuries are a big part of it. They lost Marcus Davenport during the season. They lost Alem McNeil during the season. All of these guys got hurt relatively early. Let me point out, too, that a rookie quarterback, no less, got to the NFC Championship game. In fact, he beat the 1 seed in the playoffs, Jaden Daniels, right? We don't know who the next Jared Verse is going to be. In other words, the rookies are a mystery. Some of them are going to be high impact, right? Some of them. What I want people to do in the AFC in terms of thinking about futures, and we're going to eliminate very few teams here, very few. But in terms of thinking about futures early on, our first impression, where we're going to focus, I want people to realize that you can't build a good defense overnight. As they say, defense wins championships. I want to look at teams that have a quarterback and that have an excellent defense. Right? My feeling is that the quarterback offensively can make up for a lot of shortcomings, right? As long as the quarterback isn't throwing a lot of picks, isn't turning over the ball, is savvy, knows how to run the clock, right? Is experienced to the point where you can't just blitz him every down. He'll hurt you if you blitz him, right? He's been in the league, he's consistent, he's not going to panic. Then I'm interested. So I believe the focus in the AFC, and we're only going to talk about the AFC in this video. The focus in the AFC for futures betting needs to start in the AFC West. Right, folks? Understand. I know many people are nervous like I am about Travis Kelce. He got the money, he got the girlfriend, he's a little bit older, seems to have lost some explosiveness, right? You look at this Chiefs offense, and they don't look as great as they did a few years ago, right? But, folks, the defense is top-notch. Pat Mahomes is still Pat Mahomes. We know that by looking at the second half numbers he put up in last year's Super Bowl. Right? They lost. They got blown out in the first half by Vic Fangio and Philly's defense. But Pat Mahomes hung in there. Look at the touchdowns thrown in the second half of that Super Bowl. Understand, the Chiefs have been to 3 Super Bowls in a row. They're now a defensive team that has Super Bowl experience, right? I'll agree. The 15 wins were a mirage, right? I'll agree their splits don't look that good, right? But at the same time, you know, it's Andy Reid. He's back. It's Pat Mahomes. He's back. They have a great home field advantage. This is one of those rare teams that knows how to win close games. Just look at 2 Super Bowls back. How they take the field down 3 points in overtime and win that Super Bowl. Right? Some teams, when you know it's close and it's late, they're going to fold. Not this team. Right? The Chiefs deserve some focus. Right? Don't look too hard at the offense. Folks, that's no longer the heart of the team. Let's name a second team, and I believe this is the team to really keep an eye on. Justin Herbert, folks, he's one of the best college quarterbacks I've ever seen. Jim Harbaugh, now he actually knows his way around this current league, right? He's been a head coach before with the Niners, but he's back. He met his team last year. Well, this is the second year. And just understand, I know the Chargers lost in the playoffs. I understand. Herbert threw picks in that playoff game. He doesn't throw picks normally. Look at his low interception ratio for last season. What I also want people to do, too, is to realize that they have a great defense. Right? A spectacular defense. Also, Herbert has a frontline wide receiver. Take a hard look at the Chargers. I think they're going to be overlooked by a lot of the public because they look bad in that playoff game against the Texans last year. Right? You have an A-level quarterback. You have an A-level coach. You have an A-level defense. You have an excellent wide receiver. Right? Look at their wide receiving numbers. One guy's going to stand out, and he's a young player. Right? I think this team has more than enough to be a serious threat to win the conference. Now, let me talk about a team I wasn't expecting to mention. Now, you know I'm a Pac-12 guy. I know the Pac-12's no longer with us. Some new league is going to call themselves the Pac-12. Right? Okay, we understand the tradition's been broken. But I'm a big Bo Nix fan. Right? Just understand. I was hesitant to put this team, even with Sean Payton as head coach, a quarterback guru. I was hesitant to put this team on this list of being viable to win the conference. Because I thought, as good as Bo Nix is, even though Bo Nix is a little bit older, he's not as young as you think. He's a second-year quarterback. But what I want people to do is to realize that the world has changed. Right? Whereas before, second-year quarterbacks leading a team to the Super Bowl was rarer than it is now. What I'm about to do is name the second-year quarterbacks who were starting quarterbacks and may not have played every game, right? May have taken the reins a third, if not halfway through the season, but who in the last 5 years, since 2020, have led their team to a Super Bowl berth, right? Joe Burrow, the Bengals, right? Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, Jimmy Garoppolo, Pat Mahomes. Folks, you have a handful of guys since 2020 who were second-year quarterbacks who led their team to a Super Bowl appearance. So let me just say, I believe Bo Nix can. Right? I'll also agree that the Broncos didn't look that good in the playoffs. Okay, fair enough. But the Broncos have an elite defense. Right? The Broncos have experience. They made the playoffs last year. Right? I think Bo Nix is one of the more promising young quarterbacks in the league. I have to include the Broncos on this list. Let me also point out, too, that if you go back to 2019, Jared Goff, second-year guy, in the Super Bowl. 2018, Nick Foles wins the Super Bowl. Right? Just understand, younger quarterbacks seem to be much more prepared than they were years ago. Now let's talk about the gold standard in the conference. Right? Now I'm not saying this team has the easiest road, but they are the gold standard. Right? They have better numbers than the Bills, who I'll mention later. They have better numbers than the Chiefs, who had a bunch of wins and were the 1 seed last year. Right? This is the team that, if everyone stays healthy, and you and I know no one can guarantee that in this league, right? The quarterback on this team has been hurt in the past. But this team has everything in place, and it's the Baltimore Ravens. Right, folks? They're the gold standard. They have a better running back than anybody on the Buffalo Bills team. They have better defense than the Buffalo Bills. They have a competitive quarterback. In fact, Lamar had better numbers than Josh Allen. Right? I would say the gold standard are the Ravens. But let's name a sleeper in the division. Folks, I want folks to compare 40-odd-year-old Aaron Rodgers' numbers with Josh Allen's numbers from last year when Josh Allen won the MVP. Folks, you'll be surprised. Right? I understand it's fashionable right now to look at Aaron Rodgers and to think he's flaky. I know Steeler fans themselves are saying, what took this guy so long to commit to us? And I know skeptics are going to say, who the hell is Aaron's second receiver? Right? Isn't Metcalf really more of a deep route guy? Who's going to be the meat and potatoes receiver? Who can catch balls underneath? There are questions with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But let me make a few points here. The Steelers have a great defense. The Steelers have consistent leadership. Right? Tomlin's been there for a long time. The Steelers haven't been below 500 for a long time. Right? I think the Steelers are extremely well positioned. Right? Tomlin, for whatever reason, has had some success against the Baltimore Ravens. Right? I think that the Steelers are a team to look out for if you were fortunate enough. And keep in mind, you're getting long odds now, but if you were fortunate enough to have gotten them on futures when they were without a quarterback, right? We knew Russell Wilson was leaving, and we didn't know who was going to quarterback the Steelers. The betting market went crazy, as you could imagine. People seem to forget that this team made the playoffs last year. So now, Mike Tomlin is going to have that defense back to his standards, right? Last year, they were one of the better defenses. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers is going to give them, with Metcalf, who was not there last year, is going to give them some offensive punch. Right? I'll agree. The running back situation, they need to resolve that. They need a second wide receiver. Folks, it's June. There's still time. The Steelers have one of football's better front offices. I think the Steelers are going to be in the mix. You heard me mention the Bills. The Bills, of course, and I know it sounds like I'm naming everyone. I'll name some teams that I'm not enamored with, who are highly thought of. The Bills have the easiest division. Right? The Bills, of course, because they play in cold weather, they have a decided home field advantage, particularly in December, right? Some of these warm weather teams are going to go to upstate New York in December. The wind's going to blow through the stadium. They won't know what to do. People are going to be freezing. They won't be able to stop the run, right? We see this every year with the Bills, right? And now, of course, Josh Allen has the accolade of having been an MVP, that might actually attract some free agents. That might actually change the mood in the room. People might feel that they need to stock the roster, win now, take advantage of Josh Allen's prime a little bit more. I think the Bills certainly are a dangerous team in terms of seeding in the AFC. Just understand the North is loaded, the West is loaded, the East and South not so much. I believe the Bills are going to have an excellent opportunity to try to be the one seed in the conference. Right? Now, let's talk about teams I'm not confident in. Right? And understand, the public's going to disagree with me in part because of what happened lately. The Houston Texans did beat the LA Chargers. Right? I'm touting the Chargers here. I'm touting the team that lost that playoff game. Right? Understand, too, we're hearing about the Texans picking up people. Right? I'm not confident in Houston. Go back to last year. Folks, the points against the Houston Texans equal the points they scored. In other words, they have no plus on the points scored versus points against. Right? I don't like that. Also, I know they were picking Herbert left and right in that playoff game, but that's not their real defense. Right? Their real defense is underwhelming. Let me say, too, there's some moving parts in that division that give me concern. I'm a Giants fan. Daniel Jones has game. Right? Understand the Giant organization. It's where offensive talent goes to die. You were looking at Saquon, who was something like the second pick in the draft the year he came out, and you were thinking, wow, is Saquon even an elite back? He leaves the Giants, he puts on green, suddenly he's up at 2,000 yards. You're saying, my goodness, this guy looks like a Hall of Fame back. How come he wasn't able to do this with a blue jersey on in the same division? Right? It's not like Saquon changed, time zone, went to a warm weather team and feasted on warm weather. No, the guy was, in the same division. And he was a superstar. Folks, the same thing might happen to Daniel Jones. He's one of the better athletes in all of football. Understand, he's an excellent runner. Right? The guy was running for his life as a Giant, right? I'm a Giant fan. Him and Indy, ooh, that could be interesting. That could be interesting. Obviously, Indy has other concerns, right? Change of ownership and stuff like that. But let's just say I'm not sold on the Houston Texans here. Right? Let's talk about another team I'm not sold on. Me and the rest of the country loves the Bengal offense. Right? Give me Joe Burrow and those wide receivers any day. My goodness, they're high-powered. The problem is, in football, there's a part of the game where the offense leaves the field. Right? Your defense has to take the field and actually has to hold a lead or at least control the other team. That's where I have my doubts. Let me point out, too, that when I see the money all these offensive players are getting, right, not just Burrow, but his wide receivers, and I'm not saying they don't deserve it. The offense is top-notch, right? The problem is that leaves less money for the defense. Now, I can hear some, corporate presentation from the team where, this year's going to be different. They're going to focus on defense and stuff like that, right? They also have to convince us that they're going to focus on winning at least some games in September, right? This team notoriously slow out the gate. Let's just say I don't see them having a top level defense. A defense as good as the Chief defense, the Charger defense, the Bronco defense, the Raven defense, the Steeler defense. I don't see them able to compete with those defenses this year. So I'm questioning the Bengals. Let me say finally, the Dolphins, they're entertaining to watch on offense, right? The bottom line is that Tua always seems to get hurt, right? The bottom line is that the team is not defensively blessed. Um, I question the Miami Dolphins, right? I really feel that all the Bills have to do is just play Bill football, and they're going to just sleepwalk to the divisional title, right? The question is whether the Bills will have enough drive to say, nah, this isn't enough. We want the 1 seed, right? We want what Pat Mahomes just had, right? So that's how I see it. I think the AFC West, folks, is the best division in football, right? I think the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos are spectacular. I think even the Vegas Raiders will be much better than last year because I feel that Geno Smith is an underrated quarterback, right? I'm very pleased that Tom Brady apparently played a hand in Geno Smith ending up back with Pete Carroll, right? Understand, folks, it's a rebuild with the Raiders. Now, I'm not putting the Raiders on the same footing as the Chiefs, the Chargers, Denver, the Ravens, the Steelers, right? The Bills. But let's just say in the West, in the conference, for the worst team in that division, the Raiders are better than many other worst teams in their divisions. So that's how I see the AFC right now. Obviously, these views are going to evolve, right? I'm going to watch some preseason game, and some guy who I did not know existed, who might have been on the practice squad last year, might have been in college last year, is going to take the field and he's going to turn heads, right? You're going to see, actual performance. You're going to realize, wow, some of these players are much better than I thought, right? Maybe I'll look at the Bengal defense and suddenly I'll see some lineman who looks like he's a terror, right? Looks like he's reborn. But I believe these are the teams to focus on in the AFC. These are the teams I'm interested in for futures right now, right? I'm going to try to be throwing money on some of the longer shots, right? For some reason, and I have no idea, having watched the Jets for years, having been raised in a Jet household, right? My dad was a Jet fan. I was a Giant fan, but let's say I wasn't controlling the TV. Having watched the Jets for years, Aaron Rodgers in a year of complete dysfunction, where Robert Saleh gets replaced early and the Jets had all kind of problems, um, put up some great numbers, right? I believe fans found it fashionable to criticize Aaron, right? Aaron has some views on vaccines, Pfizer, other things, and I think that's impacting people's view of him. Folks, he produced last year, right? Understand the record they had. Aaron wasn't playing defense for them, right? There are parts of the Jets where, that's on the GM. You know what I'm saying? That's on other parts of the team, right? Um, I think Aaron with the Steelers, folks, that's a match made in heaven It's too bad it didn't happen 8 years ago when Aaron was, in his prime. Let's just say, the Steelers travel extremely well. If you've ever gone to Vegas to watch an NFL weekend, folks, you look around and you're going to see Jerome Bettis jerseys, Rod Woodson jerseys, right? You're going to see Steeler fans there, right? I think Aaron is going to be surprised by all the community support that he's going to get with the Steelers, and it helps that any quarterback can close their eyes and know that Tomlin has the defensive side of the ball, covered, right? So that's how I see the AFC. I'm going to look at the Steelers. I know a lot of people are going to be scared off the Chargers. Folks, that's a team to bet on, right? The Herbert you saw in the playoff game, that's not who he is the other 364 days of the year, right? And all I can say about Jim Harbaugh is the guy is just a straight up winner, right? He was at San Diego. He was the head coach at Stanford. People forget how lost the 49ers were when he took that team over, right? He goes to Michigan. The glory is suddenly back with the Wolverines. He gets back to the NFL. His team's in the playoffs, right? This is year 2. This is where guys are going to look around and buy in completely, right? They were there last year. They were in the playoffs. They're going to show up this year and they're going to say, hey, how far can we take this, right? How come Andy over here and Pat are ruling this division, right? How come they're getting all the lettuce, right? It's time for us to get ours. That's a great sleeper team. Let me also say, too, for all the good things that have happened the last few years in Baltimore, folks, they must be starving, right? Lamar can't seem to shake this reputation that he has of folding in the postseason, right? I think that team is still going to be hungry, right? So those are the teams I'm looking at. Obviously, you're not going to get great odds on the Ravens, right? But I believe you're getting great odds on the Steelers, certainly. You're getting great odds on the Chargers. And let me say, too, you look at the defense that's been put together for the Broncos, right? And you realize that Bo Nix was getting better the longer last season went on. And he's with an offensive quarterback guru who could take him to the next level, right? That's one of the secrets in the AFC, by the way. Andy Reid, of course, is an offensive quarterback guru. Jim Harbaugh used to be an NFL quarterback, right? Jim Harbaugh, by the way, got second-year quarterback Colin Kaepernick to the Super Bowl, right? So you have Sean Payton. He's a quarterback guru. I believe those guys are going to be able to get the most out of their offense, right? And understand all the teams I just named are defensively blessed, right? As I said earlier in this video, the real truth about the Chiefs is that they're now a defensive football team. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comments section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.